good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you have had a good weekend. This is Sunday evening for us. Welcome to Connect Africa, to your Pan-African platform, where we analyze everything that's happening in the continent and bring you the Pan-African perspective. Trying to own that narrative and give it an African narrative. So we are here on Sunday evening. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you, Mahlet, and greetings to everyone who's watching us. We are glad that you're supporting the channel. This really energizes us and it gives us hope and encouragement. So we want to encourage you. If you are new on this channel and to this channel, try and subscribe to the channel and give us that push that we are looking for. As Mahlet has rightly mentioned, we are for Africa here, and so do not be shocked if we are so Afrocentric, the so-called Afrocentric. So we want to look at things from a Pan-African point of view. From an African point of view, we are looking at the world from an African point of view, just like how the Chinese are looking at the world from a Chinese point of view, and the Europeans are looking at the world from an European point of view. And unlike them, we are not forcing anyone that they should come and look at the world from our point of view. The Europeans are going around the world and forcing everyone to look at the world like Europeans. That is not what we are doing, but we are trying to encourage other Africans, not all people across the world, but other Africans to look at the world from an African point of view. So that African narrative, whether it is US politics, we look at it from the Pan-African point of view. Whether it is, Asian politics, Chinese, Indian, we put in that African point of view. How does it benefit Africa? So this is the reason why we are here. So we want to welcome you once again. We are going to discuss today President Ruto, how he has been shifting his perspective, his approach. We remember that he started as a Pan-Africanist, strong Pan-Africanist, way back when he came to power in February of this year. And he gave a speech at the Pan-African Parliament. He's been to Djibouti. He has been speaking strongly and encouraging people to trade in African currencies, the support for the Pan-African payment and settlement system. He has been looked at as somebody who is assertive in defending African interests on the global stage, specifically. Even when he went to the Paris Global Paris New Global Finance Pact in Paris, which happened, African leaders were there, and he spoke strongly for a new for us to build a new financial system in which everyone has an equal stake, so that the West doesn't dictate to everyone. And of course, this was rejected by the West especially. So we want to examine why is he looking like he has shifted his position these days with the sending of 1,000 Kenyan military officers, police officers to Haiti. So, we want to examine those things, all of them. So Mahlet, take it away from there as we examine whether he's facing challenges, whether he has sold out. So these are the things which we want to examine. So Mahlet, take it from there, please.
Yeah, so as Kwame said, we have been here supporting that because that's our duty, first and foremost, to give support for those Pan-African leaders, progressive leaders. I mean, when they talk like it and when they walk like it, then we come and we promote them, we analyze. We have dissected so many times President Ruto's speech from his Pan-African in the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa, that speech, then the one he did in Nairobi during the Mo Ibrahim Foundation Summit, when he did his visit to Ethiopia, when he did his visit to Eritrea, we come and we praised him because we know that. And then when he did his speech in Paris, because we know that by saying those things, he is putting his life in danger. We know that we said he needs to be protected by all means, because we know for those kind of leaders, when they speak like that, what is going to happen. And he was so dynamic. But when we see also something that is in contrast with Pan-Africanism, we come and try to look at things before we go and condemn them, what's happening. We try to look at from the background. We know everybody's senses. Even some of you have been commented that there is something wrong. Can you try to look at on, President William Ruto? Yeah, we have been thinking and we have been observing each things. As Kwame said, there are different things that he deflected from how he started recently, not attending the BRICS summit and appointing police to Haiti, and there are other things. So for that, as we always do, we bring you a research-based discussion here. So we try to look at from the background, his situation before even he was a president. So if you allow me, just, this video is today, as we speak, Kenya is preparing for a big global summit on climate change. So there was this video he did welcoming people. It's a 5-minute video, but I don't think we need to put 5 minutes. Let's put just, I don't know, maximum 2 minutes. So it gives us that mood that we're talking about him. Yeah, Kwame, go ahead and please share it. Or should I? I should, I think, sorry. So play it.
I welcome you to Nairobi, Kenya's capital, with the distinction of being the only city with a national wildlife park on one side and a closed canopy forest on the other. Kenya is a country of innovative, hardworking, hospitable, and ecologically people. It is also a magical place full of attractions with breathtaking diversity of natural flora and fauna, stunning landscapes, vibrant cultures, and an impressive enterprise work and service ethic. Between 4th and the 6th of September this year, Nairobi will host the Africa Climate Summit, where our continent will gather to define and refine its fresh and distinct how humanity engage in effective action in order to save this planet from a climate catastrophe and at the same time lift hundreds of millions out of poverty. As the chairperson of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, and as President of Kenya, it is an immense privilege to have the honor of inviting fellow heads of state and government from every African nation and throughout the world, heads of national delegations, corporate leaders, and captains of industry, representations of different institutions, and every distinguished participant to Nairobi for the Africa Climate Summit. As Africa, we are committed to bringing everyone on board in order to make every voice to be heard. Since the climate crisis does not discriminate between the global north and the global south, or between rich nations or poor nations, effective climate action must recognize our as collective opportunity to develop and implement common global solutions. Africa is ushering in of international solidarity action and a new green industrial age. We are championing new values to reconcile sustainable development with environmental responsibility through decarbonization and clean production, and advocating inclusion and justice in
Yeah, I think that's a sign for us. Maybe it's enough. We give them some Ruto vibes here. Yeah, Kwame, can you hear me? Kwame, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mahlet.
Okay, very good then.
I can hear you.
All right, then. So let's jump into it. First of all, before we go and analyze the things what he didn't do, or the things that were in contrast to what he said, that his Pan-African speech and everything. Give us a background, like an overview of President Ruto, at least from the time when he was not a president. Was he a deputy president at some point, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mahlet. It's very important, I think, always to get a background of where the person is coming from before, I mean, maybe you praise him or condemn him. And this is something which I've learned recently, that it is very important to listen to the person carefully. And then this gives you a firm position on which to reach a conclusion which is reasonable. President Ruto, of course, he was vice president, or the deputy president in Kenya. They call him deputy president, not vice president, under President William Ruto. And he doesn't come from a family of strong, a strong family of politics.
Under the president of Uhuru Kenyatta?
Yeah, yes, he was under the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. President Ruto was the deputy president under the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta, and he doesn't come from a strong family of politicians. So to some extent, he has been looked at as somebody who paved his own way through this sort of dynastic political country, whereby you have a few countries which a few families which control the politics of the nation. So to some extent, he is being looked at as someone who's from the poor, or who at least belongs on the side of the poor. So he knows what it means to be a poor person. I was listening a few days ago to his chief advisor on economics, the one who leads his council on economics, and you could see that he has really wanted to help the poor, come up by restructuring the economy, because he's looking at the economy currently of Kenya, that this economy is only owned by a few people, and they want to consolidate that position. And of course, in this situation, you can speak of Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta, because President Uhuru Kenyatta is from a political family. They are very rich. They own a lot of property in the country. So to some extent, it has been like that he has been looked at as a disruptor of this system that is dominating the country at the expense of the poor. And so he has a system which he's trying to build in Kenya, which he called the bottom up, whereby he wants to empower the poor people and put finance in their hands so that they can be able to build themselves. He can build an economy down to be able to eliminate poverty, build businesses, downwards. So whether he will succeed or not, I think that is another issue which we need to come and discuss later when his term ends. His first term in office ends. And I agree that is another day. On another side, President Ruto has been a champion, of course, of climate change, as he has mentioned consistently. Kenya's power comes from the renewable energy. 90% of it comes from renewable energy. So he has been a champion of climate, change and climate adaptation. He's currently the chairperson of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government. So he is leading that, and that is why he's also hosting the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, which is starting on 4th, which is tomorrow, up to 6th. I think that's about 2 days. Heads of state are going to arrive in, and today actually I saw the news about an hour ago. President Nana Akufo-Addo arrived in Nairobi, and he was welcomed at the Jomo Kenyatta, International Airport by the secretary, by the cabinet secretary of Foreign Affairs, Morris. Is called Moses Kiru. So he has arrived today. he was addressing the youth together with the president of the African Development Bank, Mr. Adesina. They were addressing the youth from all over the African continent. There was that interaction, and the youth from all over the continent who were invited were asking him questions on this summit and how Africa is trying to adapt to the climate change and how we should approach it. And of course, he has continued to insist that Africa has to come to the table when it comes to the international climate approach. Africa has to come to the table not as a vulnerable place which has been devastated, but as someone who is coming to offer solutions. Because if we come as people who are vulnerable, then we have put ourselves in a position where another group of people who have actually contributed to the destruction of the environment are going to put and proffer solutions on our behalf, are going to impose their solutions on our behalf. And we have seen this, whereby the West has been pushing itself in onto Africa and forcing Africa to stop drilling for oil. You remember the East Africa, oil pipeline, which is being constructed. They have been opposing it. They have been saying that Africa should not, do fossil fuel, should not drill for fossil fuels and use them, should use renewable energy. But also what was mentioned was the fact that these groups who have been forcing themselves on Africa, they committed themselves at the Paris Climate Agreement, during the Paris Climate Agreement, that they will provide over $100 billion annually to help the global South countries on climate adaptation. These countries, they never provided that money. So that is something which has been highlighted consistently. So that means they are not in a position to dictate to us what to do. So, and how to approach actually the issue of climate change. So that is the position in which President Ruto is standing right now, to try to consolidate Africa's position on climate change, so that by the time we engage with the other parts of the world who are talking about climate change, including the United Nations, Africa has its unified position. And I think that is a very important aspect. That is a very good approach where I think he has done on that side very well. Now, he was, as we mentioned, he was at the Pan-African Parliament, and he gave an important speech in which he spoke about the fact that Africa should be the new factory of the world, but it should be a green factory. It should not be the normal factory like what we are seeing in China. There has been a lot of pollution in China. During the first industrial revolution, Britain did a lot of pollution. The second industrial revolution, the United States too did a lot of pollution. But unlike them, who have done a lot of pollution and they have used a lot of fossil fuels and cutting down trees, Africa should be the next manufacturing hub. But it should be a green factory. We should run a green factory. We should run green factories in the world. So Africa should be the new green factory of the world, not just a factory, but a green factory. So I think that is very important. That speech is very instrumental. Now, this is what we are looking at, is how President Ruto started as a person, and how, he made us look at him as somebody we should have hoping. But of course, going along, his position has been changing, as you have rightly spoken, on not attending the BRICS summit, which happened in South Africa. And this summit, 46 heads of state, 46 African countries attended, with 20 heads of state. They attended this summit. So he did not attend that. And then his position on Haiti, which is being driven by the United States and the United Nations, which we thought that that one was a difficult situation. So we will look at, as you mentioned, why he is taking this position, or supposedly why he is taking these positions that he is taking. Thank you very much, Mahlet. Back to you.
Thank you, Kwame, for that. Now, again, to put things chronologically, you have given us his background. Now, let's move how he was when he came to his presidency. It's just about a year or more. But yeah.
It's almost coming, sir.
Yeah, it's in October, I think. Now, is he
I
one?
think it came in February. Was it February this year? Right?
Maybe he
When
swore
he was sworn in.
in February, but the election happened, I think, in October. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
what I wanted to say, we have, those leaders, if we have to categorize them, who are really consistent and they're Pan-African, like less than a handful of leaders. I can say maybe even one or two, like President Isaias. We have like now Ibrahim Traore, and those Mali is also, those are taking a different trajectory in terms of breaking that shackle from neo-colonialism, and then one President Isaias who really is not afraid and not bending down for anyone. So but we have, those Pan-African leaders who make so much noise, like President Museveni, like Macky Sall. You can put even President Kagame, but you see them collaborating to do things against their own neighbors with the West. Is he one of them, President Ruto? I mean, all this speech was for nothing, that we have been, praising him all Pan-African platforms. Is he one of them, or was he for real? How do you view so far his Pan-African all speech or actions, whatever, before we move those changes?
Yeah, I think, thank you for that question, Mahlet. I think that we should not reach a conclusion very early and write him off. Like we mentioned, when we look at his background and where he's coming from, when you come to, and it is very important that he started this way, because the beginning also is very important, because at the beginning, this is where normally you get to understand someone and their ambitions. It helps you to understand somebody's ambitions at the beginning when they are coming along. And of course, along the way, people may change their mind due to certain situations. Maybe there's a lot of challenges and the person backs off the road which they had taken originally. So what I think is that President Ruto has the material. He has the material. If you listen to, like I said, to his chief of the chairperson of his economic advisory committee, you can see the dream that he wants, what he wants to achieve in Kenya is very clear. And like we've mentioned, we want to encourage actually people to read his speech and listen to his speech. You can go to Africa Imagine, my channel, and watch that speech. The speech which he gave at the Pan-African Parliament, that speech is very important because that speech is practical. It is very practical. Only that you could find challenges in implementing it. That is the only problem. Like when he speaks about the fact that we should start manufacturing in Africa. We should refine the iron ore, for example, in Africa. If we refine all the iron ore needed across the world, this is a practical solution which he gave. We'll refine it. That means the world will get all its refined iron ore from Africa. Okay, we will not take away. We'll get all its steel. The world will get all its steel from Africa, and it will not take iron ore from Africa. That means you will help to reduce the environmental, pollution that is being, that is going on currently. Because looking at what is going on, they take this iron ore, they dig it out of the ground, and then they transport it on ships. These ships are run on diesel or crude, and they are polluting the world. So this is all pollution. But if you take this iron ore and refine it from Africa, and you take it in form of steel, of course, you reduce that pollution. And then, of course, we will be running this on clean energy. If we say we are going to invest in solar, we are going to invest in wind, we are going to invest in nuclear energy. These are really, Pan-African and practical solutions in every sense if you look at them. And if you look at his initiative that Africa should have a unified position on climate change so that we are not bullied by the West. So these are all Pan-African positions, if you look at them carefully, and they are very strong. The fact that he mentioned we should give the African Union more power, some power should be eliminated from the heads of state and given to the African Union for it to act. Everyone, all Africans across the world and African diaspora have been complaining about the African Union, that it is not acting, it is not doing its job. I think this is a practical solution that can be done if the African heads of state agree that this is where we should go. I think that we should not be very quick to write him off, simply because he may be facing certain challenges. He may have these dreams. He may have come with these dreams as a Pan-Africanist leader who wants to contribute to Africa. But then along the way, of course, he may be facing some challenges, maybe threats from the United States, like how we have mentioned, because he was saying we should use the Pan-African payment system. Why should we use the dollar? I mean, the Pan-African payment and settlement system was launched by the African Union long before, people started talking about the dollarization. But no African head of state has been championing it and talking about it. You mentioned the President Kagame, you mentioned the Museveni, you mentioned the Akufo-Addo. All these guys have been talking whatever they are talking, but they are not talking about these practical solutions. So I think that we need to step back and relax a little bit, or even engage him. Okay, we could engage him as Africans and Pan-Africanists and say, President Ruto, we really want you to clear your position on where you are going. I mean, when it comes to the issue of Haiti, we do not agree to this because we know the history of Haiti. And of course, this is where the African diaspora come in, because they are very well versed with this position. The people in Haiti, our brothers in Haiti, our African brothers in Haiti, our African brothers in the United States, in the Caribbean. I think this is where they have to come in and write a letter to Ruto. The letter can go through, like, for example, Ambassador Commission, can go through, the Prime Minister in Mia Motley, and the letter can be sent to President Ruto and tell him that your position, we don't agree with your position on Haiti and how you are approaching the issue of Haiti, because these are imperialists are using you. I think we have to learn also to approach things in this direction. So I think that we should not be very quick to write him off as a sellout, but rather we should engage. We can engage because, like you mentioned a time ago, these leaders, they do not know everything. They do not know everything.
Like to come in this one. So if you say that, I take that as a highlight. We should not be quick to write him off. Okay, then maybe there is an arm twisting is going on. If that's so, what could it be? For what reason? Which things that he said, which things that he has done during his presidency or before his presidency could put him, or they have him, they can blackmail him for what? For the things that he said, for the things he has done before that we don't know.
Of course we know.
Yeah, back to you.
Yes, of course we know the United States is very good at blackmailing. We know that, and the Western world. And in the past, when they came to power with President Uhuru Kenyatta, when they came to power, they had cases of remember there was riots in which over 3,000 people died in Kenya. And so they were dragged to the ICC, President Ruto and Uhuru. And during that time, they fought off those cases and the cases were dropped. So I could think of something like that. Maybe they could have, something else on him, another something. You never know what we don't know, because he's been in power for some time. So they could have something on him and they could be using that to blackmail him if you don't send, to Haiti.
What was that thing that was related to his ICC? There was a case.
Yeah, so there was some riots in Kenya. I think it was in 2007. If we have any Kenyans, they can put it in the chat section so that we can be very precise on the period. But I think it was in 2007 when he was, they said that they were involved in these riots, whereby they were inciting tribalism in the country. So it was an elections issue. And actually, I think it is on Obasanjo and Mbeki who were involved. I'm not very sure, but I think President Mbeki also was involved in settling this issue. It was an election issue. So they were indicted when they came to power, both of them with President Uhuru. Because of that death, they said that they participated in inciting people and causing this kind of death that happened in Kenya. So I believe that the United States could be using that, could use that to blackmail him and say, we will bring back the cases if you don't do this for us, or maybe if you don't do the GMOs. We saw Bill Gates was in Kenya. He came to Kenya. That is one of the things. I believe that is part of the arm twisting that is happening. And Kenya, of course, is one of the fastest growing economies. It's the biggest economy in East Africa. So, and the United States feels that it wants to be involved in that economy. When it comes to technology, Kenya is the first place, I think, in the world where a successful mobile money transfer over the phone, a successful mobile money transfer company came from M-Pesa. I mean, so the United States wants a piece of this, of this action that is happening over there, since this is a very vibrant economy. So these could be tactics which are being used. Maybe we'll pull out of contracts, AGOA. The United States knows how to use AGOA. It has used even AGOA, on South Africa to threaten South Africa, even though in majority of the cases, it is the United States which is benefiting from the AGOA, because it comes and manufactures products from your countries and then sends those products to the United States tax-free. And it is claiming that it has given us tax breaks on certain products. So they could be using all these tactics if you go in the background. And if you try to examine from the background, of course, this is all, a speculation, but we are trying to give you the scenarios, the likely scenarios, which are.
You are breaking, Kwame. I think he's having an internet connection problem. Yeah, you were breaking. You were frozen for a few seconds.
Yeah. So, yes. So I was saying that these are all the scenarios. The fact that the United States wants into the East African economy, and East Africa is expanding rapidly. A few years ago, I think 2021, the Democratic Republic of Congo was admitted in, and then we are seeing even right now the process of admitting Somalia into the East African community is rapidly advancing. They visited Somalia. The delegation from the East African Community Secretariat visited Somalia to verify and look at the credentials of Somalia, whether community. So it is likely that the United States may want on this action. And that case, of course, I spoke about the case of 2007 riots which happened in Kenya, in which they claimed that President Ruto and President Uhuru were involved, which was dropped. But I know that this is politics. They can resurrect it. So these could be all cases which could be used to blackmail him, of course, into telling him maybe you should keep quiet, you should tone down on your Pan-African rhetoric. So I believe that these are all positions you can look at. These are all things you can look at this point.
Yeah. So you said again, I am on that statement. I'm up. I'm holding you for your statement. Okay, we should give him a time. We should not be quick to write him off. But then when he's doing, to be silent and not to be that pro-Pan-African is one thing. But the second thing, to go really and practically, for example, sending those policies even against the will of the Haitian people. And then there's, not going BRICS. That's like also, although nothing has been said, but it's a kind of a sabotage. Nana Akufo-Addo, did he go? Did he go? Nana, he went.
Yes,
There was
Nana.
Kagame. Okay, Kagame, Museveni, who missed it. So it says by itself something. And then recently, I just wanted to share, but I couldn't find it. Was it as of yesterday? We have seen it together, the tweet where Mike Hammer, the special envoy of the US to the Horn of Africa, came to Kenya, and they have Kenya is ready to work with the US and solve the conflict, to bring peace in the region. But we all know who Mike Hammer is. He's like the male version of Victoria Nuland. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Yeah, definitely. What you're saying is true. Is scary.
Yeah. So we have had all in the Horn of Africa. They know, they agree with me. Drop your comments in the chat section. What Mike Hammer has done to Ethiopia, has done to Eritrea. So it's just a recent memory. So when he go and practically do those things that are not Pan-African. So for how long we should give them time? I mean,
yeah. I think that this is very important that we have on our platform. We have come out, to talk about it, and I've seen it. It is not only Mike Hammer who's been frequenting the State House in Nairobi. Other delegates and diplomats from the United States have been frequenting Nairobi, the State House in Nairobi, to see President Ruto. And it has been worrying, it has been a worrying phenomenon even on my side. And I was like, what is President Ruto doing? And of course, you mentioned the fact that he didn't attend the BRICS summit along other African heads of state who claim to be Pan-Africans, like, President Kagame and President Museveni. There's questions. This tells you that we have a lot of fake Pan-Africanists presidents on the African continent, regardless of what they say, because what we are more interested in as Africans is the walk. You have to walk the talk, not just talk, all day and talk about things. What we are understanding is that a lot of them are interested in power, just staying in power, and they are willing to use any rhetoric. When it comes to the African people, they use the Pan-African rhetoric to get sympathy from the African people or people of African diaspora. And we have seen this with people like President Nana Akufo-Addo. When he wanted to capitalize on the African diaspora, he put up the year of return, the year beyond the year of return, things like that, to be able to capitalize on the African diaspora. We have seen people like President Museveni also using this rhetoric. It has been there. Now, when it comes to imperialism itself, also, they go in and they show us that they will not attend it. Like, for example, important events which we take as very important, like the BRICS, they will not attend. You saw that, for example, the Russia-Africa summit, people like President Kagame did not attend, So this raises absolutely questions, and President Ruto himself did not attend the Russia-Africa summit. So it starts raising questions on the issue. And of course, President Ruto, maybe you could forgive him because of the fact, when it comes to the Russia-Africa summit, because of the fact that he said that Africa should be represented by a few people. Of course, you could forgive him because people would have asked, you are the one who said, why are you attending now again when you are summoned to, to St. Petersburg in Russia? So I think it is worrying. It is worrying, but I think that when we start speaking about it and also engage him, I think is the best way to go before we completely write him off. And of course, in our writing to him, it is important that we highlight the points where we think that he is sliding back, that he's backsliding or he's faltering. So I think it is important that we highlight those places or those spaces, those points in which we think that he is backsliding, instead of, completely writing him off, yet he started well. And we know that President Uhuru Kenyatta also started well, but somehow he went back and coiled back into Kenya and hid himself in there. Even though when he started, he had started as a Pan-Africanist, almost Pan-Africanist president. He was visiting majority of the African countries and going around. He was in Uganda, and he said to the Ugandan parliament that Kenya and Uganda should pass the same budget, because we are the same people. So, but somewhere along the line, he called back into internally the country, and he was absorbed into what I would call maybe narrow nationalism and tribal issues, starting to fight, internal wranglings and stuff like that. So, but I think we should give him some time, and of course, this is just assessment which we are doing. Of course, we will come back later and look at his performance along the way and see whether he's performing on behalf of Africa. And of course, one thing which you have not spoken about also, the condemnation of the issue in Niger, what happened in Niger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that maybe he did not have enough information. I suggest he did not have enough information. I suppose he did not have enough information.
I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy that. I'm sure he has enough information.
Yeah, so I think that these are all the things that we need to engage as African civil society. I don't think he's so bad that he is not willing to listen to African civil society. This is where we need to come in and engage as African civil society and engage him and say, sir, we really don't think that this is the right thing to do when it comes to Niger, when it comes to the GMO. Somebody, spoke about the GMO, the fact that Clinton was there, and then they were allowing, I think they spoke of allowing GMOs into Kenya, things like that. We could speak about them.
Yeah, thank you, Kwame. Now, on the points, one thing just to make clear here is that we need to, when we talk about Ruto or any other president that we think he or she is a Pan-African leader, is that when they do good, we praise them, we promote them, we give them that support. We try to connect with the people that they are leading to the nation, meaning the Kenyans, or it could be if it's a Ghanaian leaders to the Ghanaians. We try to put our message, for example, in this case, for the Kenyans, because they are all leaders, they are Pan-Africa, it doesn't mean they are loved by all types of people or all types of tribes, whatever, in their country. But our job is to look at their actions and what they say from a Pan-African perspective. So what is the way forward when you see that this kind of inconsistency on a leader? You say that we should give it time and as a Pan-African platform, to look at things and bring when he does wrong, to say it is wrong. But for the Kenyans themselves, what's your message?
Yeah, I think that is important to look at the background. I mean, internally, the various countries, even when you go to South Africa or Ghana, sometimes we tend to be very hard on these heads of state. If you look at the grudge or the hate that would come, against him. I mean, sometimes it is really hard. We come down really hard on these heads of state internally. But I think that it is important. I think that it is important for us to give him time. Let us give him time. I think let us give him time, but more important, we have to engage. I mean, we can't sit on the side as Africans. We cannot always be sitting on the side and complaining on the side. You see, I do understand that there is needs, there is pressure, there's economic pressure within countries, but there is where leaders have shown that they have the ability of doing things if they are given support. But you find that he may have a lot of pressure within the country itself, that the pressure, compresses or destroys all the Pan-African ideals he may have within him. And we saw this even with President Nkrumah, when he was the leader of Ghana, that a lot of pressure was piled on him to try to dampen his Pan-African spirit, his Pan-African ideals, you know, and a lot of criticism, a lot of disturbance. And of course, these, you know, these groups, imperialism knows how to come and entangle itself with those groups which are criticizing you and pushing you down. So my message to the Kenyan people or the African people in Kenya would be, I mean, to try to understand what the man is trying to do, I mean, for the people and for the country, for the ordinary people. Because I have heard about what he's trying to do from his chairperson or chairman of the Economic Advisory Council. He's trying to build from down and bring the wealth that is being accumulating at the top and be able to build from the bottom. That is where they are talking about the bottom up. And I did not believe in this man, you know, called David Indi. He's called David Indi. At first, when I heard him speak, I really wrote him off. But I had to go back and listen to him about 4 or 5 interviews which he gave in Kenya to Citizen TV and all the other TV stations. And that's where I was able to get an understanding of President Ruto and what he was trying to do in Kenya as an outsider, someone who does not belong internally into the system that was built by a few people in the family. So I would ask that they should give him a little bit more time because he has been there for 1 year. Mind you, the term is 4 years. So give him a little bit more time and give him some support until you feel that, no, after 4 years, he has not delivered. He has not delivered for us, or he has not delivered fast enough. And examine the promises which he made. You know, after 4 years, then you decide and say, we will not support him again. We can't put him back in office because the terms are true. Remember, the terms are true. So on that note, I think that we should, the Kenyans should at least try and support him for this first term and not, again, distract him from doing what he promised to do to the point that he will be defeated from doing what he's supposed to do. Because if he delivers in Kenya, then he will be able to deliver even on the African stage.
Yeah, I just had one note. So now we go to, I think that was it for us, but we go to our chats. There are some of them who asked a question, who gave a suggestion, but to make it clear on the points, we want to make it clear that this platform is not for praising or attacking any individual, but upholding African progress and pushing the African narrative. That's our duty or our obligation. In the onset, we spoke highly, as you know, in the beginning of President Ruto, after his practical speech in the Pan-African Parliament and other platforms. So with the awareness of his challenges internally and externally as a president, point out his action that should be criticized. So that's what we are doing. We have criticized when he sent police to Haiti, when he came out and talked about supporting ECOWAS of the situation in Niger, and even speaking on behalf of the African Union when even the African Union was not speaking. That was really a huge mistake, but he did what he has done. And he confused a lot of people thinking that that was the stance of the African Union until we know it later. So let's go to the comment sections, and let me start from here, which really connects with what you said, Kwame, at the end. So it was Ossie Ekwam. Welcome, Ossie. How are you? He asks, how much time, how many years? Events wait for no one. We simply don't have time. America, China aren't waiting for Ruto. So why should anyone else? Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, definitely. The time is not there. The time is not there. But To be honest, let's be honest. The man has been there for 1 year. I mean, it is 1 year and there's a lot of pressure. To be honest, you have to deliver, of course, internally, and you're working hard to deliver internally, and you want to put out your dream, you know, you want to put out your position and your contribution towards the African continent. I mean, the West is putting a lot of pressure on you. You know, you should do this for us. You should move in this direction. You should be our policeman in the Horn of Africa. You know, because of course you know that the United States has been trying to pressure Ethiopia and take over Ethiopia, but it failed to take over Ethiopia. So it's looking for a policeman in the Horn of Africa, someone who's capable, a government which is capable. I mean, these are all challenges, but he's been there for 1 year out of the 4 years, you see. So I understand that we are all impatient. I mean, I'm very impatient myself when it comes to African issues, and we want things to be done quickly. But I think somehow, somewhere, I mean, we have to be realistic in some issues, in some cases, about what can be achieved in what period of time. I mean, this is my point of view. This is how I see it. I think we have to be impatient, but at the same time, we have to be realistic about what can be achieved during a certain period of time.
Yeah, so Mike is in by saying 1 year as head of state, but 10 years as deputy president beforehand. Okay. Yeah, for me, I will just... Huh?
But deputy president doesn't make decisions on the country. You know, you can advise the president, but you cannot tell the president what to do, because he already has an advisory. He has different advisory councils, for example, on economy. So he cannot discard what economists have told him. His group of economists, which he has put together, he cannot discard it to implement what the deputy president is saying. To be honest, he can't do that. You know that he can't do that. And that is why you see that Ruto is moving in a different direction, far different direction from what President Uhuru Kenyatta was. President Uhuru Kenyatta was emphasizing a lot of investment in infrastructure. And President Ruto is saying that, and his economics advisors, that the investment in infrastructure, it is important to invest in infrastructure, which are directly going to spur in, development for the people who are at the bottom. So they think that we should put money in the poor people, in the people at the bottom, instead of investing in infrastructure, like, for example, highways, which are coming from the airport to a place where the rich people stay only, like an express highway, because that is what they think that this, like, for example, the Nairobi Express Highway, it was not useful, because it's not going to benefit the poor. It's just going to benefit the rich people who are just coming from the airport, driving straight to an area where they stay. So there's no way poor people are going to benefit from this. So this is the approach. You can see that the approach is different now. So that is where the fact that he was a deputy president doesn't give him ability to make decisions when there's the president in the country who has already his own agenda.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for me, let me say this, the highlight of Ruto was not his speech or what. I mean, yeah, very, very good speech, very Pan-African spirited. But what he did just before the US Africa Summit in December 2022, he just visited Eritrea, and then he was heading to the US Africa Summit for me. And at that time, Eritrea was one of those 6 countries that was not invited by that summit of US, for the kind of relationship they have with the US. So that was really, I thought that's very symbolic, and you don't see so many heads of states going there. So it was really important for him to visit Eritrea, and looking at him walking in the streets of Asmara.
Yeah, I think on that, I think even President Isaiah himself saw something in him. That is why he invited him to Asmara to go to Eritrea and have a conversation with him. So it is possible that President Isaiah himself saw something in President Ruto, that this is not is not one of those ordinary presidents who just come and they don't want to change things. So of course, President Isaias himself, may be disappointed in certain issues, how President Ruto may be handling things. But I think he himself also originally saw something in President Ruto, unlike other African presidents. That is why he invited him to Eritrea. And that is what exactly we are speaking about, that the way he came in the beginning, it is worth, celebrating or encouraging. And if he has erred, I think we need to keep looking at how he's going and engage. And of course, if he keeps going in the negative direction, I think we need to put up an alarm also. And so we really we are not happy. We don't like where you are going. We really think that you are selling us out. You are selling the African people out.
That's exactly what he's doing, right? That's what his action is. So Tina Office said Ruto has to retreat. Hello, Tina. Welcome. Ruto has to retreat from listening to US and the West in general. Ruto is to support has to support Niger. Haiti people, they are fighting for freedom. There's no gangs in Haiti, so he should not send the police. That's why. And actually, the civil society organizations in Haiti wrote a letter about that. Now, OCS says Ruto goes as far as cosmetic changes, anything substantial and deep. He reveals his colonialist leanings. There's no Pan-African president in Africa. They're all members of African Union. And AU is a gang of African dictators. But no, I mean, I always should claim the African Union, forget the heads of states. I mean, that's, we should not give it up. We should look at how it is formed and claim it as a citizen. We should not look at it as something that is there for the heads of states. Africa need no GMO. It will kill Africa. I don't know about this. Did he approve the GMO, Ruto?
Yeah, I think there was talk of approving GMOs in Kenya because of improving. They said they want to improve productivity of grains in the country.
The man is completely, he has lost his way. Okay. I thought Kenya had moved beyond ethnic killings. It appears to be sophisticated, modern, and stable. Yeah,
obviously, Kenya is one of the countries which are heavily affected by tribalism. And of course, I would speak about Ethiopia. I think Mahlet also, you know that. Kenya and Ethiopia are some of the countries which are heavily affected by tribalism, and politicians, of course, they are the ones who exacerbate these problems. They increase, they capitalize on these problems instead of unifying the country. Yeah, and that is it. So it is still a problem. It is a problem in majority of the African countries, but it's just that it is on another level when it comes to Kenya and probably Ethiopia, I think. And Nigeria also is having a lot of problems with the tribalism, heavy problems.
Yeah, Ethiopia is deep into it. Well, Judith Ilondo said the issue of blackmail is baffling and not true. Why will the West, who are extorting your resources, be the ones pulling the string? I think our African leaders are crooked in their ways.
No, they are crooked, of course, absolutely. None of us here is happy. You see, none of us here is happy about how African heads of state are moving, or how they are operating, how they are approaching the continent. We need to operate the continent in a unified manner, because the divisions are the ones which have led to our vulnerability as a continent, that we are disrespected on the global stage, that we are exploited on the global stage. So I really don't dispute what the person who has commented is saying, that our African leaders are crooked. But they are crooked how? It is because they have failed to unify the continent. And there's something which I said, that regardless of the success that has been achieved with different countries, or Mauritius, or even you can speak of Rwanda, the general verdict is that the African continent has, the African leaders on the African continent have failed the continent. That is the general verdict, regardless of what has been achieved in other parts of the continent, in Mauritius, in Morocco, and Rwanda, and what they're achieving there. Maybe you can talk of Kenya too, to some extent. But the general verdict is that all the African heads of state have failed the continent. Looking at how the continent is, that people keep coming to the continent and claiming part of it. We have seen France, how it is refusing to leave. And no African head of state has come out to rebuke France. No one has come out to rebuke France that it is refusing to leave Niger. No African head of state has come out to talk about the issue or the fact that Africa is being occupied by military bases. France has over 10,000 military troops. Over 10,000 troops on the African continent. The United States has over 29 military bases. None of the African heads of state has come out to mention this and say the United States should leave. We want to engage via business channel, not via the military channel. This is not what we want. We don't want your military over here. Send your businessmen, because the United States doesn't send its military bases to China. It sends businessmen. France doesn't send its military troops to China. It sends Boeing and Renault. Germany doesn't send its military troops to China. It sends Mercedes-Benz. It sends Volkswagen. It sends, all these companies. It sends businessmen. But when it comes to Africa, they send military troops. They don't send businessmen and businesses to come and manufacture goods from Africa. So this is a failure, of course, of leadership. This is a failure of the African heads of state. And of course, I absolutely agree that is the case. But that does not mean that we should not recognize when there's potential, when that potential arises. It does not mean that we should condemn everything completely, because there is certain leaders within who are good, and when that good arises, I think it is up to us again to recognize that this is a good leader, and we need to give support to him.
Okay. Yeah. Africans have, this is Theo saying this, Africans have to be more discerning. Number one, who do they consistently support? Number two, is the nation and its people starting to prosper? Rutos is, I'm not sure if I get it. Also, it says Ruto has advisors. Even if he doesn't know, his foreign ministry will know and will brief him. His foolish policy towards Haiti is intentional and deliberate. Anyone from Haiti here, please? Give us a sign here. No, well, Africa needs a criminal court to start locking up all those crooked criminals, corrupt politicians. Well, the whole Africa needs a coup to change the status quo. That rhymes, by the way. Those politicians are laughing at the citizens of Africa. Stupid ECOWAS gone to Spain to talk about, oh my God, to coup we did a brief about it, I think. That thing is crazy, really crazy. And I really wonder what the African Union is. How do you, even does the structure allow it? Why ECOWAS is acting like this?
No, these institutions Nkrumah warned about them long time ago. Nkrumah, was against the formation of regional economic communities and the formation of African Union itself in the way it is. If it was not a union government, it was supposed to be a union government. So why they say that the Organization of African Unity was a compromise, it is because it was supposed to be a government. a solid government to govern the African continent. So that is why they always say that it was a compromise. So what Nkrumah warned was that, what Kwame Nkrumah warned was that the organizations are going to be used if we do not form a union government. These organizations you are forming are going to be used by the imperialists to subjugate Africa, or what he called the Balkanization. They're going to be used by the imperialists to Balkanize Africa, for the Balkanization of Africa. And so that is what we are seeing. So ECOWAS itself is not of its own. It has been taken over by the French and the imperialists. It has been taken over. That is why you see that the chairperson of the ECOWAS Commission, and the one for political affairs, who was Musa, they were in Europe trying to brief Europe and the European Union about how ECOWAS has gone, how far ECOWAS has gone in what it is doing in regards to the issue in Niger. They were there yesterday. This was just yesterday. This news was yesterday. So they are not institutions which represent African interests. They represent European interests. And that is why you see that they behave in a way they behave.
Yeah.
And Nkrumah, like I said, warned about this. Their formation was going to be used for European interests and imperialist interests. And that is what we are seeing. So this one is just prophecy being fulfilled. So this, again, tells us, we of this generation, that we must strongly, strongly work for the unification of the continent. This should be our rallying cry. This should be our cry everywhere we speak, everywhere we go, that what we want to see is a unified Africa, is a unified African government. We want a single African government on the African continent. And this should be our fight. I mean, in this generation, the other generation which went, their fight was independence. We want independence. That was their cry until they achieved it. I mean, political independence, of course, we are not fully independent. And another generation which came before them, their fight was the abolition of slavery. And they fought and they achieved the abolition of slavery. So our generation too, our cry should be the abolition of neocolonialism and the unification of Africa into a single state.
Yeah, W said, I hope they are not having something. I hope the enemy does not have something against Ruto, that they are twisting his arm. Yeah, exactly. That's what Kwame was trying to tell us. But I think there was not so much question. Okay, African dictators want to restore ousted presidents without knowing what the citizens have been going through. What a shame. Even Jamaica sending police to Haiti. Oh, really, Mikey? Is that new, or is it together with Kenya? Once the colonial borders were set, hand-picked presidents would get comfy and greedy, then not work as one Africa. Yeah. Oh, greetings. We are so honored, Sister Shanice, to see you here. Welcome and thank you. It's an honor. So Sister Shanice, she has a live stream every Wednesday. I'm gonna put the link here. I will put it in the chat section. So you have to subscribe and watch. She bring a lot of teachings. It's a Pan-African platform, and Kwame will be featured on her upcoming Wednesday show. So please tune in and show your support. He's coming very hard, so you will have to listen what he has to say. So thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, Sister Shanice. So that's it for us as far as President Ruto is going. As we said, when they do good, we support them. When they do bad, then we come and criticize them. But when we can, even before going criticizing, we have to be practical beyond, as we always say, we don't just talk, we try to engage Pan-African leaders, elders, and try to write letters to the concerned body to engage people. That's what we try to do. So as far as President Ruto is concerned, its time will tell. But for now, we have seen some red flags, so he needs to be told. Yeah, it's time only will tell which direction he's going. It's just the first year from his term. We will see, but we will be watching closely. If you have any topics that you want us to bring and discuss here, please let us know and send us your email. And please share the video, subscribe. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. If you find this video insightful, relevant, then give it a like. And then beyond that, please share it with your network. That's important. It's knowledge, it's information. So we need to empower each other. But you can also further help us or support us by going to our PayPal account, which you'll find in the description section. So anything will be good for us, but don't forget to share the video. So that was it on Sunday evening from us related to what's happening or with President Ruto, or where President Ruto is heading from watching his actions recently. It's a bye-bye for me, Kwame. Unless you have something, then we close our session for tonight. Oh, I promised.
I'm okay. I want to.
Yeah, while you say something, I'm going to drop Sister Shani's link. Let me check.
Okay. Yeah, so we just want to thank everyone who watched us this evening, morning, or afternoon, depending on where you are across the world. We are Connect Africa. We are a full-fledged organization, Pan-African organization with a website called connecttoafrica.org. And we are also engaged in groundwork on the ground. We're working with different organizations in mobilizing and linking those parts we think that are going to help in the unification of Africa and the progress of Africa and all African people across the world. When we say Africa, for us and Africans, it means all people of African descent, including those in the United States, the so-called African Americans, the Caribbean, and everywhere. For us, these are all Africans. So the work we are doing it, we are not just talking, we are walking the talk. We are not just talking the talk, we are walking the talk. So that is why we invite you to come out and support the job that we are doing, support the channel, but more so also come out and support us financially if you can, so that we can be engaged directly in the process of pushing. A few months ago, even last year, we were arranging a delegation to Mali of African elders. And of course, we met some challenges and we were not able to be successful. But these are some of the things which we are involved in. So that is, we invite you to come and be part of that process. When you contribute, of course, we give you a full accountability of what you have contributed to us, and we can see it from there. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Africa must unite. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll see you again tomorrow on our live stream session. So have a good evening, have a good week, which starts tomorrow. And bye-bye. Ciao. And thank you, Kwame.